What is a legacy? Is it the things you achieve while you're in your prime that others can learn from? Or is it the way you set the next generation up as you step out of the limelight? Could it be the firsts and the achievements you have to your name? Or maybe it was just a subpar stable that went downhill after Manu was released. In wrestling, legacy is a mixture of the three, and how an established talent with a rich history interacts with a new star is vitally important. Wrestling is built on tradition, honor, and respect, and as part of its existence as a predetermined sport, it's possible to facilitate the passing over from one era to another in front of our very eyes. Like in a few years' time when I'll leave all this behind to retire to my country estate, and Andrew will be your new god. All hail Andrew! It's happened in wrestling time and time again. Some were against the will of the veteran involved, some were false dawns as the new hopes soon sunk without a trace, while others you didn't realize were true torch-passing moments until long after the fact. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best torch-passing moments in wrestling history. Join us. Number 10, Mike Awesome and Taz. ECW's collapse was a series of events that still don't really make sense. Although Paul Heyman was the anti-Scrooge McDuck when it came to financial skills, ECW as a brand was healthy and growing. They had toys, video games, a network TV show, and were selling out arenas all over America. But as a result of its growing prominence, ECW's best stars were plucked away by WCW and WWE, leaving Heyman in need of some new blood. The biggest departure from ECW was when World Heavyweight Champion Taz agreed to a deal to join WWE in 2000. Heading into Anarchy Rules 99, Taz was slated to take on FMW's Masato Tanaka for the strap, but mulleted Death Machine Mike Awesome barged in and made it a three-way dance. The crowd knew Taz was leaving, so booed him mercilessly. But it all went silent when Taz was eliminated after only 3 or so minutes. With a tear in his eye, he told the two combatants to go for it before heading to the back. In the end, Mike Awesome emerged victorious. Taz came out to hand him the title and raised his hand, signaling to the ECW crowd that Awesome was the man now. Didn't exactly go to plan in the end, but the thought was there. Number 9, Bret Hart versus Ric Flair. As the 90s came around, the landscape of the WWE shifted drastically. The established stars were getting older, while the looming steroid scandal caused Vince McMahon to look at his less, obviously enhanced guys and say, should probably build the company around these instead. The standout performer in WWE's midcard during this changeover was Bret Hart. The Hitman had organically gotten over due to his in-ring skills and penchant for putting on incredible matches with whomever he was facing, most notably headlining SummerSlam 92 with the British Bulldog. As 92 rolled on, Ric Flair was in his second run as WWE Champion, but had one eye on going back to WCW. Hulk Hogan had buggered off to Hollywood, and Macho Man was forcefully transitioned into a commentary role, so it was time to put the strap on Bret. And they did, at a Superstars taping, and the match wasn't aired on television. Regardless of the unorthodox nature of the change, it was still a huge deal. Flair had massive amounts of credibility, while Bret was more than ready to take the strap and usher in the new generation. That is, until the Hulkster returned to throw a hissy fit and sabotaged everything. Number 8, Batista versus Triple H. Triple H aside, there aren't many fans of the Reign of Terror. The biggest ego-stroking title run this side of Jeff Jarrett in TNA, Triple H had a stranglehold on the World Heavyweight title on Raw, and even in the brief moments where he didn't have the gold, he was either sniffing around it or keeping himself on top in other ways. To be fair to Trips, the reign did spawn Evolution and cause them to be legitimately booed, going against the cool heel trope that was in vogue. But all bad things must come to an end, and when it was finally time to end the reign, Triple H did so gladly and effectively as good mate and Evolution partner Batista was cemented as the man. The way Batista won the Rumble and turned on the game and Ric Flair was a masterstroke in storytelling, and the build heading to WrestleMania 21 didn't put a foot wrong. However, this was Triple H, and we were all prepared for him to emerge victorious like he did against Booker T 2 WrestleManias beforehand. But lo and behold, Triple H actually did the job, and did the job again in subsequent rematches, with Batista being cemented as a bona fide superstar. Number 7, Goldberg versus Hulk Hogan. This may surprise you, but Hulk Hogan wasn't always the easiest person to do business with. From creative control clauses to an ego as big as his 24-inch pythons, if Hogan wanted to stay on top, then there was little anyone else could do about it. In WCW, Hogan was at his politicking worst, as he and the NWO ran the show both on screen and off it. Refusals to do business, prominent spots for his friends, and the bullcrap that engulfed Sting's victory at Starrcade 97, all of it was par for the course with the suntanned menace. But as much as the inmates were running the asylum at this point in time, WCW did one thing effectively. They made a star out of Bill Goldberg. On July 6, 1998, WCW were broadcasting Nitro from the Georgia Dome with over 40,000 in attendance, and they knew this was the perfect time to crown a new champion. That's right, 40,000 for a TV taping. The 90s were mental. First of all, Big Bill had to get through a returning Scott Hall, then in the main event he did the unthinkable and toppled Hollywood Hogan clean after kicking out of multiple Hogan leg drops. Although Goldberg's reign ended terribly after 174 days, the way it started was absolutely mega and signaled that he was the star for the future. Number 6, Mitsuharu Misawa versus Jumbo Tsuruta. Tiger Mask 2 was one of the names reinventing what junior heavyweight wrestling was in the late 80s. Incredible match after incredible match got Tiger Mask over like Rover, then in a tag match he snapped and removed his mask, revealing to the world that it was in fact Misawa under the hood. The crowd went ballistic and Misawa transitioned from the junior division into the heavyweight scene. All Japan Supremo Giant Baba was faced with a crisis when top draw Genichiro Tenryu packed his bags and formed Super World of Sports, while company ace Jumbo Tsuruta wasn't getting any younger. As the weeks went on, Misawa chants were growing and growing, and Baba couldn't ignore them. The decision was made. Misawa was to beat Jumbo and take his place as the new ace of All Japan. Misawa idolized Jumbo, and facing him would be his first true test without the Tiger Mask gimmick. Jumbo wasn't sure if losing was the right move, and allegedly sent a message asking if he could lose by DQ, to which Baba succinctly replied, no. The two had a fantastic match, with the crowd rabid for Misawa throughout. It proved a wise move too, as All Japan sold out every one of their Tokyo shows for the next 6 years, with Misawa on top. Number 5, Nature Boy versus Nature Boy. At the start of his career, Ric Flair was a bruising hoss of a wrestler and far removed from the dirtiest player in the game that we all know and love. However, early in his career, Flair survived a serious plane crash and had to change his style as a result, swapping brawling and mass for technical skills and cunningness. The change was a success, and Flair soon held the NWA United States title, engaging in several memorable feuds for the gold with the likes of Ricky Steamboat, Roddy Piper, and Greg Valentine, among others. To supplement this change, Flair started calling himself the Nature Boy, and used the figure 4 leg lock in reference to the iconic Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, who had retired a decade earlier. Flair's cockiness and goading eventually forced Rogers out of retirement, and a battle of the Nature Boys was set. There were few former stars more over and credible than Buddy Rogers. The first ever WWE champion and a former NWA World's Champion, for Flair to be even mentioned in the same breath as Rogers was a huge deal, and when Rogers put Flair over in July of '78, it legitimized Flair and set him on a path to superstardom. Number 4, Brock Lesnar versus The Rock. Brock Lesnar's rookie year was one of the best in wrestling history. An unstoppable force of nature, Lesnar arrived pissed off and repeatedly demolished the Hardy Boys just to let everyone know that he meant business. After a couple of months on the roster, Lesnar found himself in the King of the Ring tournament, where the winner would not only be king, but would also get an undisputed WWE title shot at SummerSlam. By the way, WWE, please bring this convention back. It was ace. Lesnar fought his way through Bubba Ray Dudley, Booker T, and Test before defeating Rob Van Dam in the finals, setting up a title match with undisputed champion The Rock. By the time SummerSlam rolled around, it had been just 126 days since Lesnar debuted, but Vince knew it was time to pull the trigger. Initially, Lesnar was meant to beat Austin on Raw in a tournament qualifier, but Stone Cold walked out in protest. Sod it, thought Vince. Lesnar is the next big thing, and I'll be damned if anyone isn't going to play ball. Rock obliged, and after a smashing pay-per-view main event, dropped the title to Lesnar, who became the youngest WWE champion in history in the process. Now, if only WWE could still make stars like that. Number 3, Sting versus Ric Flair. As Jim Crockett Promotions became WCW, the landscape of professional wrestling changed. To get to the next step and properly compete on a global level, WCW needed their version of Hulk Hogan, a family-friendly hero to millions who could sell out arenas and shift truckloads of merch. That man was Sting. WCW management saw something in Sting, and luckily so did NWA World's Champion Ric Flair. At the inaugural Clash of the Champions in 1988, the Stinger challenged Flair for the title and shockingly held on to earn a time limit draw. This was huge for Sting, but it was merely the beginning. Sting and Flair would feud for the rest of the 80s, with Sting getting his head kicked in by the Four Horsemen time and time again. Then, as Sting was being groomed for a world title run, injury occurred. A major blow, but the show must go on, and WCW management instead wanted Flair to drop the title to Lex Luger, but Flair refused, knowing that Sting was the next big star and had promised to put him over. When Sting returned, Flair stayed true to his word, and at the Great American Bash 1990, Sting defeated Nate in one of the greatest matches of his career to start his first reign as NWA World's Champion. Number 2, Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels. After his triumph at King of the Ring and his incredible blood feud with Bret Hart, Steve Austin was the most over wrestler on the WWE roster, and everyone could see it was time to insert Stone Cold as the face of the company. However, Shawn, I am very easy to work with at all times, Michaels was in his way. After Austin won the Royal Rumble, Michaels and DX did everything in their powers to keep Austin down, even enlisting baddest man on the planet Mike Tyson in a bid to intimidate Stone Cold. But it would all be worth it. Austin was on the verge of becoming the biggest star the industry had ever seen, and winning the WWE title at WrestleMania 14 would kick this new era off in style. Of course, Michaels got cold feet and allegedly was convinced to do the right thing by an increasingly irate Undertaker, who was in the mood to punch HBK's face in. Thankfully, Michaels played ball, despite being in absolute agony due to a severe back injury. Austin wound up planting HBK with a stunner to a massive pop as Tyson counted 3. We had a new WWE champion, and WWE had a new face of the company for what would be their hottest ever period. Number 1, Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. By 1990, Hulkamania had been running wild in WWE for 6 years, turning the company from niche attraction to a worldwide phenomenon. But nothing lasts forever, and Vince McMahon was already planning for life without the Hulkster. Luckily, Vince had already found his man, the immense Ultimate Warrior. Warrior had taken the WWE by storm, battering people in 2 minutes, then screaming something about UFOs or ghosts or something before running off like a lunatic. He was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The problem was, Warrior was a babyface the same as Hogan, and it would be implausible to have either of them turn heel. So the waters were tested at the Royal Rumble as Hogan and Warrior faced off for the first time, and the crowd lost their minds. The stage was set for WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. It was the first ever title for title match in WWE history, and the first face versus face match at WrestleMania. Anticipation for this bout was off the scale, and when the two titans locked up, the crowd went berserk. The match itself was fantastic, and the crowd were that invested that neither man had to do that much. After 22 minutes, Hogan missed the leg drop, Warrior connected with the splash, and emerged as the first ever dual WWE and Intercontinental Champion, handing Hogan his first WrestleMania loss in the process.